There are places the world forgets. Villages with no names left on maps, places swallowed not by time, but by water. My name is Aijan. I'm a documentary filmmaker and travel vlogger. I've been to many strange, remote places before, but I didn't know this time I wouldn't be coming back. This is the story of the village beneath the lake. In 1983, deep in the southern mountains of Kyrgyzstan, there was a small village called Kokjar. That year, the government built a massive reservoir. The entire village was evacuated and flooded. But something was off. People say no one resisted leaving, not because they wanted to go, but because they were already afraid. The last week before the flood, every person in the village claimed to see the same dream. They said the door of a yurt opens slowly and water begins to pour in, silent, cold, and endless. Then they woke up, and the next night, they dreamed it again and again and again. Until on June 3rd, 1983, the village was gone. I first read about this story in an old local newspaper, yellowed and torn in a forgotten archive room. No one had documented it since. No images, no videos, no mention of Kokjar anywhere on modern maps. But satellite images from this year, 2025, showed something strange. The water levels had dropped, and near the middle of the lake, roofs were visible, shapes, outlines, as if the village was rising again. So I packed my drone, waterproof camera, a small kayak, and I went. It was silent, not just quiet, dead silent. The kind of silence where your heartbeat feels too loud. The lake was still, not a single ripple on the surface. I launched the drone. As it rose above the lake, the outlines became clearer. Roofs, streets, even what looked like a school building, its shape blurred beneath the murky water. Then I saw it. In one of the drone's frames, through a shattered window, a dark figure. Still, watching. I froze. I played the footage again, slower, zoomed in. Yes, someone or something was inside that house, looking directly at the drone. No one was supposed to be here. I steered the kayak toward the house closest to the figure. The roof was slanted, half above the water. A doorway tilted just enough for me to enter. As I stepped inside, water reached just below my knees. Molded curtains still hung. A table stood in the corner, cups perfectly aligned, dustless, like someone had just stepped out and never returned. Then the door behind me creaked and closed on its own. Inside, I noticed something even stranger. There were 3 old wall clocks in different rooms, but all of them, every single one, showed the same time, 3:08 a.m. I found a small wooden desk, and on it, a notebook. The pages were damp but legible. I began to read. Acton had the dream again, the same one. Water entering through the yurt. Grandmother says it's a warning. She says dreams that repeat don't lie. June 3rd, 1983. Everyone has seen it now. We can't run from it anymore. I looked at the clock again. Still 3:08. That was the exact date the village disappeared. And I was reading the last words of someone who had never left. I moved into another room. The air was cold. The smell was damp. But something else was there. A strange heaviness, like the room was watching me back. The family photos were still hanging. One showed a woman holding a baby, smiling. Another, a man fishing on the edge of what used to be a river. But behind the smiles, their eyes looked almost anxious, like they knew. I suddenly heard it, a soft voice from behind a closed door. Not a scream, not a whisper, just a gentle sentence spoken like a memory. The water is coming. Close the door. I turned sharply. The door was shut. I slowly opened it, but there was no one there. Only an old cradle, rocking by itself. I stumbled back and dropped my flashlight. When I picked it up, the floor was wet, but the ceiling wasn't leaking. The water, it was rising. I ran out of the house back to the kayak, but it was gone. I stood waist deep in the middle of a sunken street. I turned in all directions. Nothing looked familiar anymore. I tried walking west, toward where I thought I'd come from, but after 5 minutes I arrived back at the same house. The exact same house. I tried again. Same result. The village wasn't just drowned. It was looping. The village wasn't just drowned. It was trapped. And now I was inside. I stood ankle deep in cold water, surrounded by houses that shouldn't exist anymore. Each one looked lived in. Curtains still hanging, clothes folded neatly on chairs, but there wasn't a sound. No birds, no wind, not even the splash of the water around my legs. Only silence, heavy, old, and watching. I walked toward what looked like a larger building, a school or maybe a community hall. The doors were open, but the wood was rotted and soft. Inside, I saw desks, small ones, children's drawings still pinned to the wall, faded and peeling. Then I heard it, a piano key, one single note, high-pitched, crisp. It echoed through the water-soaked hall. I froze. There was no piano. I slowly backed out of the building and turned toward the center of the village. From here, I could see the mosque. Its dome barely rose above the lake, and its minaret pierced the air like a broken memory. The place felt sacred, but abandoned by time itself. I waded toward it, my legs tired, my breath shallow. The closer I got, the colder the water became. The sky began to dim, though the sun hadn't yet set. Inside the mosque, I found something written across a stone wall in red, faded ink. We did not die. We were remembered. That is why we remain. I stared at the words, unsure if they were meant for me or left behind for themselves. Then came the noise, not loud, not chaotic, but like breath. Dozens of them, behind me, around me, not quite close, but circling. I turned. Nothing, but I felt it. This place was not empty. I pulled out my camera and began recording again. I needed proof. I needed something real. I walked through more houses, each one repeating a pattern. Tea sets still on the tables, beds neatly made, radios frozen mid-song. Time hadn't moved here. It had stopped, or worse, it had looped. In one house, I found another notebook. Not the same handwriting. This one said, "The water never stopped rising." We locked the doors, but it came through the walls. We prayed, but it stayed. And now, it remembers us better than we remember ourselves. I didn't understand. Were these the words of survivors' aim or echoes? Then I looked in a mirror. It was cracked, foggy, but in it, I didn't see myself. I saw someone else standing where I stood, wearing my clothes, but older, darker, eyes filled with something I couldn't name, and then she smiled. I dropped the flashlight. The image disappeared. I backed out of the house and stood in the middle of the street. The water was now up to my waist. I knew I couldn't stay. I had to find a way out, but the kayak was still gone. My GPS showed no signal. My phone battery was nearly dead. And worse, when I checked the footage on my camera, I wasn't in any of the videos. Everything I'd filmed since entering the village, only the buildings, the water, the fog. No voice, no shadow, no reflection of me. It was like I'd never come. The silence around me began to hum. A low vibration, like something buried too deep, was finally stirring. Then, a voice, software gentle, close. If you hear this, then you're already part of us. I turned but saw nothing. Another whisper, you are not the first. I ran toward the only high ground I could see, the rising slope where the mosque stood. I climbed the broken steps and turned back. From here, the village stretched out like a memory, each house in its place, streets in their lines, but the sky above it, wrong, too still. No stars, no clouds, just gray. I held the camera up, recording what I thought might be my last message. If anyone finds this, my name is Aijan. I came here to tell a story, but this place, it doesn't want to be told. It wants to be remembered. If you find this footage, know that I tried. Then the screen flickered. A glitch, then another. I looked down and saw water rising past the mosque steps, covering the village again, swallowing everything. And in the last moment before the camera cut to black, a shadow passed in front of the lens. Not mine. Someone else, someone already waiting.